Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of That's Bonkers, Bruh, where we talk about the strange, unusual, the interesting, and anything downright bonkers. I'm your host, Mitch.
I'm Kelsey.
And we've got some good ones.
I mean, hopefully.
I'm pretty excited about today.
Yeah, we're coming to you on Easter. We're recording this on Easter. It will not come out today, obviously. But
Right.
yeah, so hopefully everybody had a good Easter. We went to brunch today. It was lovely, but I burnt the shit out of my tongue. So hopefully I'm not going to talk weird today. And it really does hurt. My tongue hurts so bad. I burnt it so bad. And we saw the Easter bunny in our front yard.
It's true. We did.
We saw a bunny rabbit running through our front yard when we came home from brunch. And we do have bunnies around here, but we don't see them like super often. So it was just funny that we saw it on Easter.
Yeah.
How much?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, it's the Easter bunny.
Yeah, we took the kids to a park and we were walking around too. And there was this turtle that was just eyeballing us.
I mean, I guess.
His head was just poking up out of the water just barely. And he was just like watching, I feel like, intently from a distance.
Probably wish we had food.
He was judging for sure.
Turtles are always judging. Okay, so do you want me to go first? Can I go first? Because I need to do it while this is at the top of my dome.
Yeah, let her rip.
I feel like my mind's very chaotic today. So I gotta get a handle on this before I get too distracted.
Okay.
All right,
Please
so
proceed.
Okay, so this topic was actually brought to my attention by one of my hair clients. I had never heard of this before. And have you ever heard of the Radium Girls before, Mitch?
Just when you had mentioned them to me. But no,
before that, you hadn't?
not a thing.
Yeah, I had
Nope.
never heard of the Radium Girls. So yeah, one of my clients gave me this topic idea and I started researching it. And I originally was going to go in a different direction. But then when I started researching this, just briefly, I was like, yeah, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with this. So we do use the topics that people suggest to us quite often. And we appreciate a topic suggestion.
Absolutely.
I always put the topic ideas in my notes and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but this story has me a little bit in my female rage.
Oh,
Mitch.
okay.
So I'm just going to need you to be mentally prepared.
I'm so excited for how the rest of this night's going to go.
I'm just warning you. I'm not mad at you. I'm just saying.
You say that. You say that, but in your voice, clearly.
It's got me a little female ragey.
Okay.
It's
Well,
easy to do these days.
scoot over here on this end of the bench and you fire away.
Okay. So the Radium Girls were a bunch of women that were hired back around the 1920s. It started like a little before that, like the first incident occurred in 1917, I believe it was. And they were hired to paint these watch faces with radioactive paint so that it would glow.
Oh, like pocket watch or like wristwatch?
Yeah,
type
so
of thing?
they would paint like the dials and everything so that it would glow, glow in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And they were told that, oh yeah, the paint is totally safe. It's totally harmless. They were instructed to point the brushes with their lips. So like, when you're trying to like thread a needle through a hole and you kind of put the string like in your mouth to make it more pointy to go through the needle.
Yeah.
They were like doing that with the paintbrushes to like tip them. And they were instructed to do it this way because they were told that if they were to use water or rags instead, it would take up too much material and too much time. It was just quicker to just put it between your lips to point the brush because it needed to be very fine tip to do this detailed work. And they got paid per watch. So they did want to go fast.
Yeah.
Because it equaled more money. And back in those days, there really wasn't a ton of jobs for women. So this was a pretty okay gig, other than the radium poisoning, to make an okay amount of money. And it wasn't too hard or anything. So, yeah. Let's get into it. So the owners and the scientists, they were familiar with the effects of the radium and they carefully avoided any exposure to it themselves. Chemists at the plant use lead screens, tongs, and masks. The USRC, which stands for the United States Radium Corporation, had distributed literature to the medical community describing the injurious effects, quote, injurious effects of radium. Despite this knowledge, a number of similar deaths had occurred by 1925, including USRC's chief chemist, Dr. Edwin E. Lehman, and several female workers. The similar circumstances of their deaths prompted investigations by Dr. Harrison Martland, county physician of Newark. An estimated 4,000 workers were hired by corporations in the U.S. and Canada to watch faces with radium. And so they knew that this was very harmful. They knew what was going on. They kind of just treated these women as if they were disposable. All the scientists who were men were covering themselves up and using the proper gear to not be exposed. And this really was not even starting to be investigated until this guy died, the chemist, Dr. Edwin E. Lehman. They didn't even try to investigate it till this guy died. They did not care about these women at all. And that's why I'm a little bit in my female rage era. But anyway, so because the girls didn't think that this was dangerous, they painted their nails, they painted their teeth with it, they painted their faces just for fun because it would glow. They would glow in the dark, so they would, try to make light of work and have fun and be glowing in the dark, all the while just being severely poisoned by the radium paint. And by 1927, more than 50 female workers had died. So things were not...
So 50 people had died in within 10 years.
Yeah.
So this wasn't like a slow, oh, you're going to catch something and, you're 25 now, but you'll have the effects of it when you're 65. It's
right.
It was quite immediate.
It wasn't like, oh, you worked in the mines as a youth
right,
and now you're 80.
Now you got the black lung.
It wasn't like that. It was pretty quick. They were dropping pretty quick like flies.
Wow.
So dentists were among the first to see numerous problems among the dial painters. Dental pain, loose teeth, lesions and ulcers, and the failure of tooth extractions to heal were some of these conditions. Many of the women developed anemia, bone fractures, necrosis of the jaw, a condition known as radium jaw, where their jaw literally fell off. Mitchell.
Wow.
Yeah. Radium jaw, it was a thing. The women also experienced suppression of menstruation and were unable to get pregnant. Although there were claims that the above conditions were caused by x-rays the women received to investigate their health problems, the amount of radiation absorbed would be inconsequential compared to the amount they were exposed to daily at radium dial factories. As the factory workers' health deteriorated, they sought medical attention for problems ranging from dental problems to cancer. Columbia University specialist Frederick Flynn was an industrial toxicologist in contract with the U.S. Radium Corporation. Flynn and many other doctors referred to the patients lacked medical training and licenses to practice. It turned out at least one of the examinations was a ruse. So they would go to get an examination. It was just like a fake doctor.
Wow.
At least one of the times that they could prove. And they're trying to claim that, oh, well, they're having all these health issues because of these x-rays they're receiving. Bitch, your jaw doesn't fall off when you get an x-ray done. That's not a thing. You don't stop menstruating because you had an x-ray done. Be so for real. Okay. So it was just a ruse. It was part of a campaign of disinformation started by the defense contractor. USRC and other watch-dial companies rejected claims that affected workers were suffering from exposure to radium. For some time, doctors, dentists, and researchers complied with requests from the companies not to release their data. Doctors were encouraged to claim that the affected girls had died of syphilis in an attempt to discredit them. So they were trying to just make them look bad and be slut shame them and say that they actually were dying of syphilis, which was a sexually transmitted disease that was happening at the time, pretty big. And yeah. And they were originally going along with it to not release their data and kind of keep it under wraps. The company also claimed that they had hired a great many people who were physically unfit to procure employment in other lines of industry as an act of kindness. Oh, so generous of them. In 1923, the first dial painter died, and before her death, her jaw fell away from her skull. By 1924, 50 women who had worked at the plant were ill and a dozen had died, and the urging of the company's medical professionals attributed worker deaths to other causes, like syphilis, like I said. So they're just full of shit.
I'm very I'm trying. So like, obviously your jaw is still attached with like skin, right? But like, would it just like unhinge and like?
I don't know. I really tried to look up pictures and I couldn't find anything of. I saw only a picture of when it was like kind of starting to decay. It was like really swollen and huge and gross. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't find any pictures of like when it was like fully detached. I did find one picture of the radium jaw on somebody else where it had kind of eaten away and it was like the whole lower half was like way back. There was something that I found in my research that was kind of explaining like what had gone down with the jaw coming off, and I think it was like from what I understand, it's like she was at the dentist and all that tissue inside her mouth was just like disintegrating basically.
Yeah.
And they just like could poke at it and it would just like came detached.
That like
I don't know exactly. It sounds so horrific. It's like a horror movie, literally.
It reminds me of like the pictures that they showed us in like the Dare program of like, this is what's going to happen to you if you smoke cigarettes, right? And like there was the lady that's I tried my first when she's like smoking through her trach, but then there's like other people that was like, this is what your face looks like with chewing tobacco, and it would have like giant holes and stuff like that.
Similar
and
to that, yeah.
And like where their teeth meet their cheekbone or their cheeks, I mean, like it would just be like deteriorating.
It's hard to wrap your mind around. But radium jaw was a thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I even I don't know, even if it was like safe, I just am also so curious as to why they were like, let's just put it all over our teeth and let's just like,
because it glowed.
Still, like,
because
are you just going to put paint in your mouth?
I mean, yeah. If you're iconic, you will.
Okay.
If you want to have a good time.
Okay.
Mitch, if you're boring, just say that.
I guess I'm real damn boring.
No, I think that would be fun if you had like glow in the dark paint and they would just like paint their nails and their face. Because think how it would be like, when you go to like a blue light or black light or whatever place, like a bowling alley or whatever, and if your teeth are white enough, they glow.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I guess that's true.
So
I don't know. I just would be weird about.
And you're like, oh, my teeth are glowing in the dark. Like, it's fun.
Yeah. Like, I remember having friends as teenagers, like, breaking open glow sticks, and they would, like, rub it on their hands and their clothes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, like, I was just like, you know what? I don't know if that... I'm not going to put it on me. I'm good. You guys have fun with that.
Well, maybe you wouldn't, but, yeah, your friends would do all sorts of crazy things.
Yeah. Well, that goes without saying.
I mean, they would swallow goldfish and throw them back up, like, on Jackass. So...
I did that.
I think painting your teeth with glow-in-the-dark paint isn't, like, that... crazy.
I guess I don't know, but again, we were doing that as teenagers. Like,
I don't know.
Maybe these women were still quite young. Maybe they're what is it? The frontal lobe is not fully developed yet.
I don't think it's that crazy to paint your teeth with glow in the dark paint. I think it's fun.
Okay.
If you were working with glow in the dark stuff all the time, you're like with your friends, and it's like Friday, and you're gonna be off soon. You're just like having fun. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think it's that weird. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a regular thing. I'm sure they weren't doing it like all the time, but just once in a while for funsies.
That's fair.
Okay. So plant worker Grace Fryer decided to sue, but it took 2 years for her to find a lawyer willing to take on the USRC. A lot of lawyers did not want to take this on. They didn't even want to touch it. The litigation moved slowly, even after the woman found a lawyer. And by the time of their first court appearance in January 1928, 2 women were bedridden, and none of them could raise their arms to take an oath. The 5 factory workers involved in the lawsuit were dubbed the Radium Girls: Grace Fryer, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, and sisters Quinta McDonald and Albina Larice. The USRC denied any wrongdoing, but the settlement for each of the Radium Girls was $10,000. equivalent to about $183,000 today, and a $600 per year annuity equivalent to $11,000 today, paid $12 per week, equivalent to $200 per week today for all of their lives. And all medical and legal expenses incurred would also be paid by the company, but all 5 of the women were dead by the 1930s. So
wow,
it's like that. What was, that wasn't super beneficial to them. But as a result of this whole saga, this really holds an important place in history in regards to women's rights and labor rights. And as a result, in 1949, Congress passed a bill that decreed compensation for all workers suffering from occupational diseases. And now we have things, that help protect workers, like OSHA and whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The radium paint was still being used into like the late 1970s even. But after this whole thing went down, they were required to give people the proper like safety gear and whatever. But yeah, it was quick. It was quick how fast these people were affected and how quick they were all dying. Like radium's no joke.
Clearly.
It wasn't like this like long drawn out thing where like 50 years later they have cancer. It was like you're done for.
Yeah.
But not all of the people that worked at the factory died. So one of the more well-known ladies that has spoken about it her name is May Keene. She was hired at Waterbury Clock Company in Connecticut, and she disliked the gritty taste of radium on the paintbrush and refused to put the brush in her mouth, which ultimately led to her dismissal. So she got fired. Lucky her. This decision, coupled with the support of a physician, likely contributed to her ability to live a long life. She lived to be 107.
Wow.
She died in 2014, and she had spoken about how she was just so grateful that she got fired from that job and didn't end up like one of the other Radium Girls. There's also a lady named Mabel Williams. She's another survivor who worked at the United States Radium Corporation plant in Orange, New Jersey. She lived to be 104 years old. And her experiences, along with the research of Dr. Harrison Martland, helped establish safety protocols and regulations that have benefited countless workers. While many Radium Girls did not survive, their experiences and the fight for justice they waged played a significant role in advancing workplace safety regulations and raising awareness about the dangers of radiation exposure. So now we know.
That's crazy.
And that's the case.
That reminds me a little bit. What was that show that we watched?
Where the water was contaminated?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real similar to that. That reminds me of that. It's like on the verge of my tongue. I
don't even remember what platform it was on, so we can't even.
It was on Netflix, and it was like a based on a true story about this town somewhere in the UK where they were Toxic Town, I think is what it's called.
Might have been Toxic Town.
They were dumping like toxic waste into the water system and stuff, and all these babies born or conceived around that same time all had very similar birth defects, and one of them died, and they had to fight the city. It was really sad. It was a heavy show.
It was very heavy. It was like they were trying to clean up what was a seeming wasteland, but they were just careless in the transportation because it was like covering the streets and then leaking into the water supply, and it had like all of these metals within it and everything. And so it was what, a four-part series or something like that.
Yeah,
that was
similar to that, yeah.
But yeah, it's just, and I think that was, I don't know, it wasn't crazy old, I don't believe, right? Like, wasn't a lot of the stuff that was like in the, I don't know, 80s or 90s or something like that?
Not the 80s. It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like crazy long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyways, it was really good. But that's what that, kind of that, what, oh my gosh, I can't get my words together. That's kind of that, what, that's what that reminded me of.
We got it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, Anyways.
But one more thing.
Okay.
They do actually have a Netflix movie about the Radium Girls. And I initially was really excited to watch it. Has a girl in it that I recognize. Joey King, I think, is one of the actors in there. But everything online that I read about it said that the movie was awful. It was poorly done. That it's such an interesting story, but they just did a terrible job with the movie. So I just didn't even watch it. Yeah, it's like I've already researched it into the ground and read about it a whole ton. So I didn't watch it. But there is a movie out there, and I wish they would redo it and do it well, or do like maybe a 4-part series or something.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you could make it really interesting. And you know how I love the 20s? I love that time era and everything. So I feel like it has potential to be such a good movie. So that's a bummer that everyone's saying online that it sucks. But yeah, Radium Girls. Very
disappointing.
There you have it.
Well, as not to like just jump to a new subject.
Yeah, yours does not match my subject at all.
No, we're so I guess the undertone of today is things in history that have been turned into movies.
Yeah, sure.
That's what we'll have to call it.
That's not what we're calling the episode.
That's kind of the. Anyways, so let me tell you a little bit about John Chicky Donahue.
Hit me with it.
Okay, so he was he's actually an American citizen, once a Marine, that served some time in the like I said, the Marine Corps from 1958 to 1964 as a native of Inwood, New York, which is a neighborhood of Manhattan, and served a little bit of time in the Philippines and Japan during his time. But what had happened right after he finished his time was what really made him, I would say, famous. So during or right after he got out of the service is when the Vietnam War had happened, and he had a lot of guys, or kids I should say, that were around his age that had gone, and like tons of them had passed because the Vietnam War was just not how do you say it, like it was a bad time for the U.S. military. Like they were trying to fight through guerrilla warfare and everything like that. And so John, also known as Chick or Chicky, had decided that he would take it upon himself to pack some Pabst Blue Ribbon beer and take it to some of his buddies in Vietnam.
Ridiculous.
So this again was actually turned into a movie that you can find. It's called The Greatest Beer Run Ever, and John, Chicky, if you will, is played by Zac Efron.
Oh.
So let me tell you a little about this. So this is the true story of Marine John Chicky Donahue, who in November 1967 snuck into Vietnam and braved actual firefights just so he could bring his army buddies from back home some cold beers. Funny story, though, and I can't remember if it says this in this article that I'm actually going to read here, but he had packed something like a 30-pack to take with him, but it took him 2 months to get there, and so he drank all the beer on his voyage, so he had to, like, restock as soon as he got into Vietnam, and then was just, like, fighting through the jungles to get to his friends so he could give him a nice cold beer.
So what did he do once he got there? He just had a beer with him, and then he turned around and left?
Pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's commitment.
Let me tell you a little bit about this story. So, this all began in the winter of November 1967. Did I say November 1967? He was drinking at a little pub called Doc Fiddler's, and which was part of his hometown and everything like that. It was near Central Park. There was a bunch of demonstrators outside, kind of petitioning against the Vietnam War, which is a big thing at the time. Patrons denounced them as naive idealists, while bartender George Lynch hatched a plan. And he said, somebody ought to go to Nam, track down our boys from the neighborhood, and bring them some beer. And so that's exactly what he decided to do. So like I said, he was already had served some time as an Irish American, and was very proud of his local town and everything like that. He had served his time in the Marine Corps, and he said that he knew 28 people from his Inwood neighborhood who had died in Vietnam, and felt the rabid demonstrations against the war disrespected their sacrifices. And so as he was sitting at Doc Fiddler's, he couldn't help but feel Lynch's suggestion of a globe-spanning beer run being worthwhile. After all, these soldiers could die in the blink of an eye. They were like my kid brothers, but I knew them, said Donahue. I grew up in the same houses. But I'll tell you what really provoked my trip, the demonstrations in Central Park. The protesters would carry a Viet Cong flag. They would chant murderers, baby killers, all this other terrible stuff. Lynch, the bartender at Doc Fiddler's, had only made a private first class, but was a patriot through and through, who organized local memorial and independence parades. He even erected a flagpole in the corner of Sherman Avenue. The word spread like wildfire that Donahue was going to go ahead and do this beer run. So Tom Collins' mother gave Donahue $100 to bring to her son, but Donahue rejected the cash and focused on the mission. He resourcefully found a job as an oiler on the Drake Victory, which was about to haul ammo to Vietnam, and in tow with him was a bag full of beer. Like I said, it took him 2 months at sea, but he finally had arrived January 1968. Most soldiers thought he was in intelligence, as he was dressed in a plaid shirt and corduroy pants. He set course for Dugan, who was fighting in Khe Sanh as the specialist in the Army 1st Air Cavalry Division, and told anyone inquiring that he was Dugan's stepbrother. It took 2 months to get there, so I drank all the beer. After restocking the payload of PBR and Schlitz, he embarked on the string of U.S. Marine convoy planes, helicopters to Khe Sanh. Donahue let low-ranking soldiers in on his mission and found them eager to help while mentioning they'd love an ice-cold beer themselves. He wisely kept quiet around high-ranking officials, obviously. If I told you the truth, you would not believe me, he said. The longer I was there, I became aware that they're deferring to me, and they didn't stop me. And I knew the lingo from being in the Marines, so I just kept working. Tom Collins was the first friend on Donahue's list to encounter the casually dressed civilian. Collins recalled saying, "What the hell are you doing here? You're in a combat zone." And he's walking around like he's at a golf outing or whatever the hell he's got going on. Donahue forged ahead to find Dugan. He had hitched a helicopter ride to a northern outpost and also found the province under attack by the North Vietnamese army. "Chickie, holy shit, what the hell are you doing here?" Dugan said. Donahue casually replied, "I brought you some great old beer from New York City." When enemy troops began firing, Dugan threw Donahue an M79 grenade launcher. When the dust settled, Donahue watched as Dugan and two others on his list popped the cans open and took their first sip of beer that they've had in quite some time. It was the perfect moment for Donahue to tell Dugan his mom wanted him to ensure that he attend mass when he got back. So he goes on. Donahue only had only found 4 of the 6 men he intended to find, as one had died during his beer run and another was sent home with malaria. He shared news of Jefferson Airplane's new album and NFL coach Vince Lombardi retiring before a chorus of bewildered soldiers he met reminded Donahue to head back home. "Wait a minute," one soldier said. "You're telling me you don't have to be here and you're here?" Donahue's trek to Saigon a few weeks later to catch a flight to Manila to board his ship back to New York. The Viet Cong, however, had overrun Saigon as part of the Tet offense, and were gunning people down in front of the U.S. Embassy. So remarkably, the unarmed civilian made it out alive and back to Doc Fiddler's. So he went behind enemy lines, caught into firefights, made sure that his friends got beer, was trying to get back, but then the Viet Cong had taken over Saigon. So then he had to basically hide in the jungles to ensure that he wasn't one of these people that were just mowed down by artillery shells in front of the U.S. Embassy. And all of this was just so that he could ensure that he got his friend some beer. He said he came through at a time when society didn't want us and the protesters were on us. And Collins said, "But that chickie, he's one of the nicest but craziest guys you'll ever meet."
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Just willingly decided to get on a ship for 2 months and then get through all of that to help his buddies get a beer.
Why couldn't his buddies... This is what I'm confused about. If he drank all the beer on his voyage and then had to restock once he got there, couldn't his buddies just buy their own?
Well, what I'm thinking is like they were probably essentially camping in the jungle, right? Oh. They weren't at the major cities or ports where they could buy stuff. And so they were just, too busy fighting, ultimately.
Well, that's just silly.
It's crazy, though.
That is a bizarre story.
And then funny story, he got back to New York, and he ended up buying the bar from the guy, the Don Fiddlers. He ended up buying the bar and running it for decades. And it's where he would just like sit and tell his stories about how he decided on a whim to go ahead and head out to Vietnam in the middle of the war so that he could share a beer with his buddies. That's
bizarre.
It's pretty crazy.
I see how it's up your alley, though.
I mean, it just a cool, not a cool experience. What the word I'm looking for? Like, just what a hell of a story to tell.
Yeah, I'm sure nobody even believed him.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he had pictures and stuff like that. Actually, I know there was pictures, but
he's a real bro.
Yeah, he was just like, I've been there, I've done that, I've been in fights. I'm a Marine, but I'm just gonna go unarmed.
He's got a screw
bag
loose.
Of beer. What a guy!
What a guy!
What a freaking guy!
Definitely got a screw loose up there, though.
Yeah.
But that is bonkers. Well, that was a fun one. More lighthearted than mine.
A little more lighthearted, but I've been wanting to tell that story for quite a while.
Yeah, you've been talking about it for a while.
Very eager to watch the movie.
Are you?
I'm very eager.
I just don't know that movie will be that entertaining for me, but I do like Zac Efron, so we'll see.
Easy. Take it easy over there, Kramer.
Easy.
I know where you're going with that.
He's attractive. And he's pretty funny, too.
He is. He's had a couple of shows lately that I thought were really funny.
Yeah, I didn't realize how funny he was. I actually really like him.
And that down-to-earth like documentary thing that he did, like that was really cool, too.
Yeah, he seems like a cool dude.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anything else for us?
That's all I got. I had to get that one off my chest. I've been sitting on that one for, I feel like, months.
I feel like it, too.
So.
Did you feel better now?
A little bit.
Okay.
I felt like I was having a hard time getting my words together. I think it's just been a long day.
It's been such a long day.
Barely read, and so I apologize for those that had to listen to me stutter through those stories.
It's because you were just so excited you couldn't even get it out.
Yeah, I was like just shaking.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you, spooky friends, creepy friends. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Tell everybody, write a review, like, and subscribe, and
send us more ideas.
Yeah, send us more ideas. Follow us on Instagram. We're out there.
Yeah.
So we're doing our best to get these out, and hope that you enjoyed. And
thanks, y'all.
Hope you had a good Easter.
Have a good one.
Peace out.
Bye.